Hello all, welcome back to the Exposing Grief YouTube channel. We are removing that stigma of grief and exposing it for what it truly is, which is that natural and healthy way of living and loving. We are coming to a close. Well, we're about midway through December, which means our 2022 year is coming to an end. So I hope you are taking care of yourselves and doing what you need to get through this time in a way that feels good for you if you are walking and honoring a grief journey. If not, I know the hustle and bustle is also stressful. So be sure you're taking care of yourself. I am coming at you today with another interview. She was actually also on my podcast this week. So if you want to learn a little bit more about her and her grief journey, I have the episode to her podcast, or the link, to her podcast episode below, so you can learn a little bit more about her. But I am sitting with Amanda, who is going to talk to us about EFT tapping, what it is and how it can benefit your grief journey. So I won't waste any more time. Let's hear what she has to say. Hello, my Exposing Grief YouTube viewers. Welcome back to my channel. This is the video of the month where I have another guest with me, another interview, the name might sound familiar. She might sound familiar. And now you get to put a face to the name and voice because she was on my podcast this week as well. So I'm just thrilled to have her on both platforms. So Amanda, welcome back to the Exposing Grief world. Thank you for allowing me to have you on both platforms.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited for you to share a little bit more about this EFT tapping. So for those who didn't tune into the podcast episode yet or doesn't have access to podcasts, can you quickly tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and how you got into the line of work that you're in?
Yes. So after a long and complicated journey working to heal from a ton of loss and grief and personal trauma and just life, right? I became a self-care and grief coach because I had been through so much grief and I had realized that self-care was a big part of my healing. Yet the pandemic hit and life kind of shifted. So I took that opportunity to continue to focus on my professional and personal development because I still had my healing to do and I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. And along the way, I got to meet Jackie McDonald and see her do EFT tapping. And in just a couple minutes of following along with her doing this live tapping, I was bawling. I felt this huge energetic shift in my body and felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders for the first time in a really long time. So I knew then that it was time for me to not only do this tool for my own healing, but to use it as a practice in the work that I did in the world. So I gave her my credit card as fast as possible, signed up for both of her courses because she does a basic and an advanced. And here I am.
I love that. And viewers, if you want to learn more about her story, jump on over to the podcast. She shares a little bit more about her experience with grief and what brought grief into her world and a little bit of her loss and all of that. So be sure to check that out. Can you tell us a little, we'll jump into the CFT tapping because I think it's just so interesting. And viewers, I can't wait for you to hear more about it. But can you tell us quickly a little bit more about your practice?
So I'm certified as an advanced EFT practitioner through the McDonald manifestation method. And so people may have heard of EFT. It's often referred to as tapping. There's tons of practitioners and modalities out there these days, but it was developed in the 90s. Dr. Roger Callahan had thought field therapy. And then Gary Craig came in and said, hey, I'm going to tweak this a little bit and make it a more usable tool for a more general populace. And now EFT is used for so many things: habit cessation, habit building, deep emotional work, and more. So I'm also a certified wellness counselor to kind of bring forth my partial grad school work and other background in mental and social services. So I focus mostly on emotional wellness and whole person self-care under that umbrella or hat. But in my practice, I work really hard to meet people intuitively where they're at in their grief, in their self-care struggles, in their identity issues, or just in their emotional distress, whatever they kind of have going on in those avenues, and help them find their way to a more empowered and aligned self and way of being. Like they get to rewrite their narrative in a way that feels like I call it their inner badass is writing the story versus outside forces, that we often, especially as women, the patriarchy likes to kind of assign us a lot of roles, expectations, and we often gladly take those on and end up, sometimes in our 30s or 40s, 50s, whatever, going, wait a minute, this isn't in alignment with who I am and who I want to be. Like, I'm going to shed all that and get back to like being in the driver's seat. So that's what I help folks do. And to do that, I use a combination of EFT tapping, various counseling tools and techniques that I've learned, so some meditation, visualization, mindfulness. I also am a little bit woo. You can see I've got some crystals behind me. I've got them all around me. So crystals, oracle, all that kind of stuff, just whatever kind of intuitively comes to me and whatever the clients need, right? We kind of set that up in our parameters of working together at the start, kind of what will work for them. But yeah, it's just really important to me in my practice, above all, that I create a safer, braver container for these folks to do the work. So I'm kind of the cocoon and they get to be the caterpillar that crawls in and falls to goo in a really safe way and gets to come out the other side, that empowered, beautiful butterfly that feels badass and ready to take on the world. But it's most important that I help people learn how to recognize, honor, and deeply feel their emotions without fear, guilt, or shame. Because again, often in our society, emotions are stigmatized or we stuff them away and we don't really allow ourselves to feel them deeply, or we label them bad or negative. And I don't believe any emotion is bad or negative. I believe they all serve a purpose. We need and should feel them deeply. So I also help people just make friends with their emotions and learn how to recognize them, honor them, and express them and respond to them versus react to them.
I love all your metaphors. This beautiful metaphor of like you are the cocoon that they get to safely crawl into and do the work that they need to come out the other side, this beautiful butterfly. And just I love the visuals because I think that helps people kind of understand what their time working with you could look like. I usually tell my clients like I'm the roadmap, right? I have all these different directions and routes and detours and whatever that you can take, but you're driving. So you get to choose where we're going. So all about the metaphors. I love that. Just quickly, for those who haven't listened to the podcast or who don't know what EFT is, what does EFT stand for?
Emotional freedom techniques.
Perfect. And are you willing to kind of quickly walk us through just kind of a really brief, I know this is service, so I want to be respectful of that, but to give someone a little bit of a taste of what EFT tapping might be, can you walk us through something pretty simple?
Sure. So first I'll give some background. EFT, like I said, it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it is a combination of somatic practices. So you're literally tapping on your own body on acupressure meridians. And then a combination of kind of Western psychology and linguistics, kind of bringing in some of that language and talk therapy. And so you are getting a full body experience where it is bringing in body, mind, heart, and soul. And so what it does, the science behind it is as you are tapping on those acupressure meridian points, which I'll go over all of them, you are literally calming down. You're going from primal brain kind of back up to middle brain. And then once you really calmed yourself down, you're getting to access that frontal lobe, that higher advanced brain. So you're calming the sympathetic nervous system, which pumps all the stress hormones into your body. You're calming down the limbic system, which your amygdala is in there, and that's responsible for all your emotional responses and reactions. And you're calming those systems down and just kind of saying, okay, you're safe. You can get a little bit quieter now. And once you've calmed them down, you can get into that rest repose state and start to, like I said, access higher levels of thinking, clarity, decision making, and again, respond instead of react. So that's the science behind it. So EFT starts with a setup phrase. And there's actually, before I go there, actually, let me go back. There's kind of three phases or kind of parts to EFT. There's venting, there's possibility, and then there's affirmations or new feelings. And one of the things I really like to teach people and emphasize is that we like in our society things to be very linear and really packaged up in a really pretty easy way. EFT is not exactly that, because in EFT, we always follow the most intense emotion. So we might do some tapping, or you might do some tapping and you might go from venting down to possibility. In possibility, your beautiful brain might say, oh, this is where that comes from. And you might end up back in venting because another intense emotion has come up. So I always like to let people know that, because if you just want a pretty ABC and you're done process, then EFT might not be for you. But if you're willing to really dive in and allow your brain to kind of show you where the work needs to be done and then do that work and follow those more difficult emotions, EFT is a beautiful, beautiful tool that allows your subconscious to really show where the work needs to be done. And again, you're learning how to recognize and honor those emotions. So venting, we use a tool called SUDS, and that's to rate the emotions. So if your emotion, I'm going to use anxiety because it's a good one that comes up and is pretty global. So let's say anxiety and you're feeling it pretty intensely. So you give it between an 8 and a 10. Well, then you would want to vent out. If it's between a 4 and a 7, so it's not quite as intense, then you're in the round of, in that realm of possibility. If it's between a 0 and a 3, then you can introduce affirmations or new feelings. And you don't ever want to introduce those affirmations or new feelings until you're definitely between a 0 and the 3, because if you try to introduce them too soon, and this is why I hate toxic positivity culture, is because your brain literally can't hear and do the rewiring to believe the positive unless it's actually in that calm, rest, repose state between a 0 and a 3. So a round of tapping always starts with setup phrases, and setup phrases happen at the side of the hand. So I'm going to really quick go through all the tapping points. So we start first with setup phrases at the side of the hand, and the side of the hand is only used during setup phrases. And you can use either hand. It doesn't matter. You can go this way or use your fingertips. And then there's the top of the head. And so that's like if you draw a line from your nose up and your ears up and where that meets. So literally right at the top of your head. And then you've got the eyebrow point. So I'm going to lean in. So not out here over your eyebrows, but right here kind of at the top or above where your eyebrows start. And then side of the eye, you're going to go out right from the sides of your eyes, right there, kind of on the temple bone. And then under the eye, you don't want to be on the squishy parts of under your eye, your bags, as you call it when you get to my age, but you want to be kind of more on your sinus or cheekbones here. And then under the nose, just right between the bottom of your nose, top of your lip. Chin, again, bottom of your lip, top of your chin. I've got a nice little groove there. And no, I didn't wear it there from tapping. It was just perfectly there. And then collarbone, and you don't want to be right on the collarbone. You kind of want to be about an inch or so below it. And some people call this the sore spot. So you'll just kind of feel, and it is a little tender there, but that's a great tapping spot. And then there's 2 other tapping spots. I don't use them, especially on Zoom, because I look so funny doing them, but I will share them because some people love these spots. I don't use them, and I haven't found that it is a detriment to not use them, but there's under the arms. So for us ladies, that's literally kind of right under the armpit where the top of our bra strap would be. And then there's chest, which again, for us ladies is often quite awkward, but would be kind of right under the chest. Or you can get the same effect if you kind of do at the bottom of your sternum. And then there's the wrist point. And so each of those points kind of access or govern a different meridian in your body. And I'd have to pull up another sheet and I don't have that handy with it. But I will tell you that these 2 spots are some of my favorites. And that's because one does the central vessel and one does the governing vessel. So one literally runs the front of you and one runs the entire back of you. And then the collarbone point is a good one because you can do it surreptitiously. You can literally put your hand over your heart so that you're tuning in with your heart and your breathing, and then just tap that spot. So that's a sneaky way to tap and kind of start to calm yourself down if you're in public or somewhere that's a little more conspicuous. So like a round of tapping would look like you would start with 3 setup phases. And those are honoring the emotion, how intense it is, and where you're feeling it in your body. So an example would be, if I stick with anxiety, even though I'm feeling this anxiety and it's really intense, I love and accept myself fully. Even though this anxiety is so intense and I feel it in my chest, I love and accept myself fully. Even though this anxiety is so intense and it's making it hard to cope right now, and I feel it so tight in my chest, I love and accept myself fully. And the reason we end on that, I love and accept myself fully, is to, again, we don't want to fully jump to the positivity, but we want to start to plant that seed and tell our brain that, hey, yes, we recognize that this is going on and we still love and accept ourselves. Yes, this is hard and we still love and accept ourselves. And if you can't quite get yourself to say, and I love and accept myself fully, I am willing to love and accept myself fully. I am ready to. You can do that intro of possibility there. So then you would just go through a round on the body because that anxiety I feel is so intense. I feel it in my chest. It's so tight in my chest. This anxiety I feel is so intense. This anxiety is really making life hard. This anxiety makes it hard to cope. This anxiety I'm feeling in my chest. So that would be an example of a venting round. I'm just staying in the negative. I'm just staying on the anxiety or the feeling, how intense it is, where it's showing up, and kind of possibly like what it's interfering with, right? It's making it hard to cope. It's making life difficult. So in a venting round, you're gonna, and you go till you kind of feel like you're complete. You just do fragmented kind of sentences or segment or phrases at each tapping point, so that you're tapping kind of 4 to 7 times. And I do both hands except for right here and right here, because then again, you're getting both right and left brain, and you're kind of getting a more vast experience. It's also all about accessibility. So if you've got an injured arm or an arm that's, more tired, one hand is enough. But you kind of get, I feel like you get a little more bang for your buck, so to speak, using both hands, because that brain science of getting both hemispheres of the brain. But again, these points, you don't need to try to shove both of your hands there, because it's that central and governing vessel. So you kind of, one hand is enough. And so then you would just follow the most intense emotions. Let's say I did a round of tapping on anxiety, and I realized that grief is what's causing my anxiety, and I'm having this memory of a loss. I would go back to that memory, and I would follow whatever emotions are there. And that's the other beauty of EFT tapping and using it with grief, is we can rework emotions around memories and events. We can follow the most intense emotion, and anybody that deals with grief knows that grief brings up all the emotions. And we can also make peace with finding joy and happiness with our grief, right? That reconciliation of like, well, I shouldn't be feeling this emotion while I'm grieving. EFT allows and creates space for all emotions to be okay and be honored and followed in the grief.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for all the information. And I work with many people who are very scientific, right? They want the science, they want to understand why it works, right? In addition to actually having the tools. So I appreciate you not only walking us through what that might look like, but also explaining like why this works and the validity behind it. So thank you for taking the time to do
You're
that.
welcome.
And viewers, I was tapping along too, so I hope you tried it. And if you're interested, Amanda's information is down at the bottom. But so we talk about you use this with grief, or you can use it with grief. So I'm curious, what would someone be looking for? What would they recognize or notice that would make them go, I think I might want to check out EFT tapping for my grief journey? What are they looking for?
They are struggling to move from one emotional state to the other, that the emotions are driving the bus, not them, that they are reacting instead of responding from a well-resourced place, that they can't start to recognize what might be a trigger for their grief. And then again, like I said, are responding versus reacting versus responding, because EFT really helps us learn how to respond. And when I say respond, that means you are well resourced. You are in charge. You are like, okay, I am feeling this emotion. All right, let me sit with it. Okay, this is where it's coming from. Okay, this is what I need to do to honor and take care of that emotion. Versus react is kind of like that. What? Is how I say it. And we are operating again from that primal brain, which means we are highly activated, and it shuts down not only our higher level of thinking, but our digestive system, our circadian rhythm, and our sleep cycles, right? So if you are somebody that is finding that you are physically dysregulated, EFT can help you get back into that physical regulation, because it is taking care of the emotions and getting your body into that, again, it's a somatic and, linguistic practice where we are getting both body, mind, and soul kind of aligned. And a lot of other practice, like I found this meme about how cognitive behavioral therapy, and I think we talk about this, is more like gaslighting, because it doesn't bring in the somatic, and it doesn't honor the emotions as deeply as it can. And while it's a great therapeutic tool for some, I knew I needed EFT when I had tried EMDR, talk therapy, hypnotherapy, all the tools I already had in my toolbox, and none of them were alleviating the grief to the level that I needed to feel like I was functioning, not at a baseline survival, but at a higher level, right? Like we shouldn't just survive. And because we've had grief and loss, we don't have to just survive. Like we can thrive and still be fully grieving. And I think there's a lot of disconnect in our society where you shouldn't be smiling or functional. If you're truly grieving, then you should be this morose lump of sadness, and that's not true. And we can still really be struggling with our grief and have it be appear a different way. So if you're feeling that as well, like there's that kind of cognitive dissonance or disconnect, EFT is another tool to again get you back into your body completely, your emotions completely. And really, I mean, again, I'll just hone in that grief looks so different for every single person, and EFT really is going to be a tool that honors you right where you're at, makes it okay, and then helps get you to where you'd rather be.
Mm, I don't know about you viewers, but that sounds really reassuring. I think that's what I would want. Just meet me right where I'm at. Don't make me go anywhere I'm not
Yes.
ready to. So it's nice to
Right.
know that there are those resources and platforms and modalities out there. Would there ever be a situation where this may be harmful or maybe not the best fit for somebody in their grief journey?
You're not ready to be fully present with your emotions and be fully honest with your practitioner, that would be a time where EFT might not be helpful. You know, when I talk about EFT, especially when I was first learning, I had some friends that were like, oh, I've heard horrible things, or I had a friend that did it and they felt worse afterwards. And as I learned more, I was like, well, they probably either weren't fully honest with their practitioner or were doing it themselves and doing it in a way that they weren't recognizing their own blocks and were opening up the wounds and didn't know how to close them, or they just weren't ready, right? Or they, it just wasn't a good fit with the practitioner. And so the advanced methodology that I'm trained in, we are trained in how to put things away. So if we're tapping along and your subconscious throws something up and you're like, whoa, no, I'm not ready for that. Even though the subconscious thinks you are, because the subconscious isn't going to show it if they don't think you're ready. But you yourself might be like, nope, not today. I'm trained in how to help you package that back up and put it away, because we don't ever want to re-traumatize, re-trigger, or re-harm someone. It is a tool that is meant to help you, make things better. And so there's a few different kind of tools within EFT that help us really know how to kind of package things up and put things away in a way that keeps people safe.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that so much. With anything in the mental health field, but particularly grief and trauma, it's like those are such fragile situations where, yeah, we do
Yes.
have to be careful and we don't want to re injure or re traumatize or open a wound that they're not ready for. Right. So I appreciate that this modality and how you work with your clients, you respect that and you reiterate that message over and over and over again, because that is such a reassuring piece for people to walk into.
And I mean, I've had therapists, again, I was training to be a therapist, and I've had therapists that were great, and I've had therapists that did harm. I know what it's like to be in that client position and have harm done. And some therapists are great at doing the repair work, some aren't. I know I'm human, therefore I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to, I can't ever not promise that I won't do harm. But I am going to make sure that I do the best I can to create a safer, braver practice. And if I do harm, I'm going to do my best to repair and, clean up and learn and do something differently the next time. But that's why I'm so in love with EFT and decided that was my path, is because I realized, especially with the methodology that I'm trained in, like it does do such a beautiful, beautiful job of honoring people right where they're at and holding them in the most gentle and beautiful way. And I will also say that I am the fluffiest non-fluff person you'll meet, meaning that I can like hold you and have so much compassion. And I'm also going to hold up that mirror. And that's another beautiful thing that EFT does. And your own brain will start to hold up that mirror. And then I, as a practitioner, help reflect that back to show you where those growth edges are. And so that would be another, if you're not ready to see that mirror, if you're not ready to look at those growth edges and have your own subconscious and brain start to tell you what's in there, then EFT might not be for you. And I have that a lot. I've tabled at a couple events, or I've spoken at a couple events, and people will literally do like the cringe, and it's like, yep, you're not ready. That's okay.
It's a telltale sign.
Yes.
Yes.
You're not ready to be friends with your emotions yet, and that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that and kind of drawing that picture out for us for people to really understand when EFT might be a good fit and when it may not be, or when it might be harmful. So for the viewers who are interested, what is their next step in connecting with you? Do you offer a free consultation? Do they just sign up on your website? Can you tell us a little bit about how people might connect with you if they want to go this route?
The first step is to sign up for what I call a badass breakthrough session. And that is a free 30-minute session where I get to ask you some questions, offer some support. We get to talk about the possibility of working together and if that's a good fit. And so those are right through my scheduling link. And then, of course, if you're interested and want to follow along and know more, I'd love for people to join my email list. So those are kind of the free ways to get connected. I also, I'm on Instagram and those things. I'm trying to get up better about being on TikTok. We'll see how that goes. And then, yeah, if you're interested in working with me, again, we'd have that free consultation and then go from there. And I offer a couple different packages. And I also, for those that are struggling, I do have a sliding fee scale because, again, mental and emotional health should be accessible. So I, again, try to meet people where they're at and work with them the best I can.
Thank you so much, viewers. I really hope that you found this interesting and useful. And if this really resonates with you, please reach out to Amanda. At least just do a consultation and see what working with her might look like. If you have any questions for me, my contact information is below. Amanda's information is below as well. Is there anything else you want to share with our viewers before we say goodbye?
Well, I would just like to teach them a couple really quick if I can talk, quick tricks. So if you are somewhere where you can't, or you haven't learned the full on tapping, you can always finger tap. So you would just take a couple fingers from one hand and tap along the nail bed of the other hand. Don't mind my old manicure that looks horrible, but you would just finger tap and you'd kind of work your way up the fingers and then back down. And you don't even have to say anything, or you can kind of talk to yourself in your head if you need to, like, I'm okay, I'm safe, and just kind of, but that's a way to kind of start to calm that nervous system down. And if you only have one hand available, you can use your thumb to tap on your other fingers. I have found this handy when driving in big city anxiety provoking traffic, and you can take one hand off the wheel. Or again, if you find yourself and you're sitting somewhere where you can sneak a hand over your heart and just kind of tap that collarbone spot, that's another way to kind of tap back in and get back into your body. And I'll teach one last thing that I love to teach all the audiences I get to be in front of. Because our society is so uncomfortable with tears, which I'm hoping to change that in my work. If you are somewhere and you feel the grief sneaking up and you need to cry, but you can't cry right where you're at, there's a trick to stave off the tears for a minute. You take your finger and act like you're holding a sneeze and you push up and in right at that cartilage at the bottom of your nose, then you can kind of sneak off and get yourself somewhere and let those tears flow. Because I am not a fan of holding back tears for the sake of other people's comfort. But sometimes in our society, like if you're at work or something like that, right, you've got to kind of sneak away to the restroom. So act like you're holding a sneeze, which in these COVID times, nobody wants you sneezing in public. So you can act like you're holding a sneeze and get yourself somewhere where you can let those tears flow.
Thank you for those quick tips. I love that. And so accessible, right? I mean, I think that's, people are like, okay, great. This is, I can do this with the guidance of a clinician or a practitioner, but how do I do this by myself? So thank you for those quick tips. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
You're
thank
welcome.
you again for your time twice in 1 week so we can have you on both platforms. And I hope the listeners and viewers get everything that they need. And I just can't thank you enough for your time and what you do. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Yes. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Have a rest of, we're to the end of the year already. I don't know what happened. So have a good rest of 2022. I will be back in the new year with all new content. So be sure to subscribe if you have not yet. Amanda, thank you again. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Amanda, thank you again for your time and wisdom and for letting me put you on the spot and kind of show us a brief little demonstration of what tapping is. And listeners, viewers, I hope you found this beneficial. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to her. Her contact information is below. You can always reach out to myself. My contact information is also below. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. We've got an incredible series coming up in January to kick off the new year, so you'll want to be sure to stick around for that. Stay tuned. Have a good rest of your 2022. Have a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and a Happy New Year. And I'll see you in 2023.